Hello and welcome to Taste of Recovery. I'm George C. Taste of Recovery is a daily podcast for members of any 12-step recovery program involving food addiction, obesity, or overeating. For most of us, recovery comes one day at a time. Every day, to stay in fit spiritual condition, we need to hear a little experience, strength, and hope. I hope Taste of Recovery helps you stay motivated to eat healthy, to lose weight, and to keep it off permanently, starting today.
Okay, so here's a problem that a lot of people ask themselves. What does it mean to be powerless over food? Step one says we admitted we were powerless over food, that our lives had become unmanageable. What does this term powerless really mean? Now, a lot of people think that it means that you're completely unable to deal with food at all. In other words, that the second you see any food, you just act like an animal and you're crazy about it. Certainly, if that did happen, then you would be powerless over food. But no, that's not what it means when we say powerless over food. Powerlessness is a baffling property of our behavior toward food if we're addicts, or if we're compulsive about it, and more importantly, maybe we're obsessive about it. So this is what happens. We think about food. We think about food a lot more than a normal person, or a person who's healthy, I guess. A normal person, they might get hungry, they think about food, or they might not even be hungry, but they might be planning an event and they want to have food at it, and they have a balanced and moderated sense of food and eating. But for us addicts or compulsive eaters, we basically think about food a lot more often and a lot more unhealthily than these other people do. So you take a look at somebody who's completely neutral about food, somebody who's got complete control, like an athlete that's able to make weight. They can eat or not eat, depending on whether or not they need to eat or not eat. They do it for nutrition or for health or for athletic performance. They don't do it because they want to enjoy themselves. In the big book, it talks about moderate drinkers can take it or leave it alone. Well, moderate eaters can take it or leave it alone. They can either eat or not eat. They don't think about it. It's hard for us who are addicts to imagine such a thing, but it is the way normal people are. You take somebody who's a hard eater, they might call it, somebody who struggles with food but is able to control. And a lot of us do move from being moderate eaters and then over time become hard eaters. The big book talks about hard drinkers. They say that certain people, maybe hard drinkers, they drink a lot and they might even suffer from drinking problems, but when something serious happens, they are able to stop or moderate. And so they are able to control it. It might be a struggle, but they're able to control it. But then the big book talks about real alcoholics, people who are really, unable to control their drinking. They at a certain point, they just lose control. Well, that's what we're talking about with hard eaters. People who are at some point completely unable to lose control. It does not mean that they're always losing control. It just means that there's certain times that they lose control. You might think of it like if somebody, think of it like breathing. Like you can control your breathing, right? You can hold your breath. And you hold your breath, but at some point you have to breathe. You can't continue not breathing. Well, that's what it means to be powerless over food. At some point you simply have to eat, even though you know it's unhealthy, and so that's what we mean by powerless. So then the question becomes, how do I determine whether or not I'm powerless? Well, the easy way would be to promise yourself what you're going to eat in the morning. Even say that promise to some other person. Typically in the morning you have a strong amount of willpower and you're able to withhold whatever you're going to do, and just make a promise each day. Hey, I'm just going to eat this. I'm just going to eat that. Make a reasoned decision about what you're going to eat and then eat it. Don't eat anything more. Don't eat anything differently. And see if you can control your eating. See if you can say what you're going to do and then actually do what you say. If you become aware of this state of mind, you might find at some point along the way that even though you're aware that you are not supposed to eat anymore, that you promised that you wouldn't, that there's some overwhelming urge, some overwhelming craving that you have to eat even though you know that it's going to be wrong. It's not like it catches you off guard. You know it's wrong, and you know that you promised that you wouldn't do it, and now you can't stop. If you get to that point, then you are powerless. Now, let's suppose you've realized that you do have this property of eating, this powerlessness, that sometimes, and you just can't stop yourself from eating. And you might also look to yourself and say, well, hey, this is causing me serious problems. It might be relationship problems. You can't get a date because you feel like you don't feel confident with yourself. It could be that you are getting health problems, that you can't, you have diabetes or something like that. Some kind of thing, something that's causing you enough pain and anguish that you're noticing you're eating. So now you ask yourself, is my life unmanageable? Can I just live with it? Because a lot of times people will say, okay, so what? I'm powerless. I can live with it. I'll just live with it and be powerless and eat like I like to eat. Well, at some point, it may be that your life will become unmanageable. In other words, there'll be a cycle of addiction. So your worst problem, let's suppose your worst problem is your obesity. If your worst problem is your obesity, maybe it's causing you ill health or bad social relationships, or maybe lack of confidence, then if you're eating to feel better about being obese, or if eating causes you to feel relaxed or comfortable, but the eating is also the thing that's causing the problem that's making you want to feel relaxed or comfortable, then you can see the cycle there, right? If you're like me, you're eating because of a problem that's caused by the eating. So you have that cycle going on. The solution to the problem is also the cause of the problem. That cycle makes the problem get worse and worse, and it's a downward spiral, and that's when we talk about unmanageable, that's what we mean. We can't go on like this. In my case, I was diagnosed with diabetes, and it was corrected when I lost weight. I don't have diabetes anymore, but that was the turning point for me. But different people have different turning points. Different people have different quote-unquote rock bottoms. But at some point, you may get to the awareness level. You say, you know what? Eating isn't just a solution to my problems. It's not just the way that I handle my stress. It's also the cause of the problems that's giving me the stress. That, my friends, is unmanageability. Now, of course, step one is a very deep step. There's a lot to know about step one. We rediscover more and more insights with respect to step one as we progress through the recovery process. But if you can see that you may have those moments of powerlessness and that you cannot control them in those moments, and if you can see that the problem with food is not only a solution to your stress or whatever it is that you're eating about, but it's also a contributor to the problems that you're eating about, then you can see that cycle of addiction happening, and you can see that you have unmanageability. If you can see the powerlessness and the unmanageability, and you can admit it, then you've completed step one.
I hope you enjoyed today's Taste of Recovery. The theme song of this non-commercial podcast is Teamwork by Scott Holmes. To suggest another topic for this program or to contribute your own experience, strength, and hope, send me an email at saginawgeorge@gmail.com or click on the Taste of Recovery link at foodaholics.net. Taste of Recovery. Oh, how sweet it is.